Hello and welcome to Quick Take TA here on Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is June 4th, 2024, and we are going to be following up with what we talked about in yesterday's long form video. Now, Bitcoin has started to initiate one of the moves that we talked about to the upside. And, generally the preferable move and the one that I favored in my analysis was a move to, somewhere around the daily upper second. We did actually see that in yesterday's price action. Bitcoin coming up to around that $71,000 area, although it did close below the upper second standard deviation. What we have seen now is that the upper second has moved up as Bitcoin is staying above the basis band here in the strong half of the Bollinger Bands. If we do start seeing closures above the upper second here, which has moved up slightly to around 71,250, then I would be in favor of, if the move didn't already happen in lower term timeframes, a move to around $72,000 by this local high up here. Above there, I would start to target $73,000 over here by this failed spike high, right into the all-time high zone at 73,835. Anywhere above there, as I mentioned yesterday, I'm looking $75,000 to $78,000 initially, then 78 to 80, and then from there, mid to low 80s and beyond to the mid to upper 80s into $90,000. And then we'll come back to it with some further analysis about $100,000 and beyond. At this point, Bitcoin is starting to show the signs that it wants to finish this move up and possibly maybe this week start to break out of this accumulation structure that it's been in for about 2 weeks now. So when looking at the daily, we did get our fully confirmed cross back to the upside. This was our bullish reset in momentum. Beautiful bounce off of the bearish control zone here of the regular Stoke. Again, this is not a Stoke RSI. This is a regular Stoke. It's running a 6.314.255 look back if you would like to replicate this. This one does have pivots. There's plenty of free ones that have pivots like this, but the momentum pivot on this regular Stoke, which measures close over close price momentum, in this case, it's now at $68,000. So that number has come down a little bit. And, in general, it is pointing to the upside with price. So that is going to favor further moves to the upside. Now, we did also have a 2-day, a 3-day, and a 4-day close with today's or yesterday's daily candle. So moving into today's daily. Now on the 2-day, we are seeing, and man, I cut that word short, huh? On the 2-day, we are seeing that Bitcoin is back above the upper first standard deviation. And from the volatility standpoint, that starts to paint the picture that we have available downside to around 69,400 and available upside to around $72,700, almost $73,000 by this wick high. I would call it $73,000 even. Now, when I say available, that doesn't mean that price can't get above and or get below, but this is kind of the volatility range that I'm looking in. And if we do start seeing closures outside of or above the upper second standard deviation, of course, around that $72,800 to $73,000, I'm looking for price to expand up to the all-time high at around that $73,835 to around $75,000 to $76,000. Obviously, my target is a little bit wider than that at 75 to 78 by the upper third here on the 2-day chart. And then, of course, below the upper first at around that 69, 400 to 500 area, I'm looking for it to play back to its little accumulation here, this higher low structure that we got going on the swing and closing basis here. But, and even down to the basis from a volatility level standpoint there at just below $66,000. Really don't want to see that area lost if that were to start to occur on any daily. If you start seeing dailies close below around 69.5, just watch this 2-day because the volatility levels of expansion on the upside bands here is going to come into play at that point. But right now, looking very good. This isn't in an expansive setup, but that doesn't mean that it can't get there. It's already kind of expanded in more of a range look. So, I would look for, heavy resistance coming into 73 to the all-time high area again, mainly because BBWP is at a 30 under 49 read here. And that does mean that volatility is in a cool down phase, but we are seeing a bullish divergence in play and already starting to play out. If we turn on BBWP, I can show you what I mean here. If we get an aggressive closure above the upper second standard deviation, you'll see this start to move up. You do want to see it get above the moving average here. and then confirm on the next closure. So it's not ready just yet, but it's starting to get there. And we can see that it's starting to get there on the longer time frames, like the 3-day, which is also set up in more of a range look. You can see the upper second here is right there at $73,000. Anywhere above there, I'm looking to the all-time high, like I said, at 73,835 to the upper third, which is coming in at 75, almost $76,000 now, 76,500 even. And the upper first here is a little bit like the 2-day, where it is at around 69,400 to 500. Anywhere below there, that opens up the consolidation lows here, and you don't want to see it really getting there from here. You want to see it hanging out above around $69,000 even. It can deviate below that upper first, but you do want to see it starting to move, especially with the daily turned up on its momentum and starting to get that daily structure set. You also see that we can see that the 3-day nearly set. The low swing low is set, closing low is not set. Need to see a close basically here or higher to close that 3-day low. And that, I have two criteria. We have the swing low was already set with this 3-day closure that occurred with yesterday's daily. I do need to see follow through with that to get the closing low set. Otherwise, the failure area is right again at the highs or the local wick here at around that 70,500. Now, to be fair, Bitcoin is pushing up above there. It's actually 70,600. Bitcoin trading now at 70,800, probably looking for 71 and maybe beyond even this evening for me. Looks good though. 3-day is still pointed to the upside on momentum. And actually the pivot came down, which is good. This is actually what we want to see on a move like this. 69,175 would be the momentum pivot here on the 3-day. And we can see that volatility is in an expansive phase from the BBWP. That's volatility within a pretty wide range here. The lower second is all the way down here at 58,500. The upper second is all the way up here at 72,900, almost $73,000, right? So until I see closures above the upper second here, just like on the 2-day, and the 3-day, I need to see the all-time high taken for the expansion phase to kick off on these time frames. Again, I don't think it's ready just yet, but we might see that picture change throughout the week. We can see the upper third is here at 76,500, as I mentioned a moment ago. The 4-day also closed, and this is starting to show the etchings of upside expansion as long as Bitcoin is trading and closing 4-day candles above the upper first at 69,500. Again, we're getting that 69,400 to 500 area. I would give it room to $69,000 around that prior cycle all-time high. But above there, we're looking to the all-time high and higher, basically. The upper second is, locally here at around 72,500 to 600. That has begun to expand up. And any closures above there, obviously, we're going to target the all-time higher at 73,835. But we would look for a price replace band somewhere around the upper third as well if we did start to see closures above there. And that is coming in at 75,700 now. So starting to creep towards that $76,000 area. Now, of course, any closures on the 4-day, now we've got 4 days to go or 3 days and 23 hours to go on this, but any closures below the 69,500 area would make the lows again available. So you're seeing the same look across the board here with all the bands. And some targeting somewhere around that $67,000 to $66,000 by the basis, at least initially. But from here for expansion, what you are seeing is 21 over 16 on the BBWP. So this is confirmed expansion now on the 4-day. It is not ready yet. This is kind of a weaker signal. It's a building signal, if you will. We do have, expansion kicking off. It is above the moving average, but the moving average hasn't quite picked up yet, and this is not an aggressive read just yet. Maybe that will develop as we go on throughout this week. We can also see that momentum is still to the upside here for Stoke. Momentum pivot is all the way down there at 65,800. Beautiful, beautiful look. This is looking to resolve fairly soon, and especially when looking at the 5-day, which we can begin to monitor as it is going to close with the next 4 days. So 3 days and 23 hours. These are going to be the two time frames that I'm going to most watch here coming up shortly this week, because it is going to start leading into the weekly. And in this case, The upper first is being traded above right now. And if we do see a closure above there in the next 3 days and 23 hours with the next 4-day candle, that is going to, of course, target from a volatility standpoint. Even on the daily, it's already targeting around this upper second at that 72,000. In this case, it is starting to move up because price is headed towards it. 72,200 now. If we do start to see any closures above there, price replace band somewhere around the upper third at minimum. I would actually look for it to outrun this band here, but this is at around $75,000. So obviously above that 72, I'm looking to the all-time high area from these longer term timeframes at 73,835. You do want to see a closure above this upper first. Again, this is coming in at 69,500. So we're getting that as a major volatility pivot. I still would give it a little bit of room to mess around and monkey around $69,000. You don't want to see any closures below there, though. If it did, then basis is back in play. That's right around its current swing low structure here. And, you know, we got swing high up here at 72,000, swing low at 66,500. You don't want to see that swing low come back into play. Any closures back below that 69,500 area would start to target that swing low again. So looks very good. This is beginning to show the signs that it's going to start, you know, taking off pretty soon. So we are looking at expansion pretty soon. 61,800 again is the pivot if you missed that in yesterday's video. So that is going to do it for me today. I am not going to be following up with ETH or runes or any of that stuff today. You can reference yesterday's video. Almost all of the setups that I spoke about are beginning to play out as well. You can kind of skip through as I did, you know, pretty thoroughly follow up with most of the Bitcoin stuff. So one last thing I'm going to leave you with is 12-hour expansion has begun. So I always look to the 12-hour to kind of inform what to expect on the daily. And in this case, we have begun to kick off full confirmed expansion, a 20 read over a 9 read here. So you got an 11% kind of lead on the moving average here. Does give it some room to come play around for the next 12-hour candle, but you know, this is beginning to show the signs that it's ready to kick off expansion in a more aggressive fashion. This was the lowest level that we've seen since back here in March, and that was March 31st. So let's go ahead and just look at that real quick because I believe that was a downside move. Yes, it was. Lowest volatility level, and it kicked off. It bounced around to the upside and then began to expand to the downside. So a volatile move was happening in more of a range look. Yes, it did get a price markdown, but it was in an overall range for a while. And it was on the subsequent failed bounces that it got real expansion to the downside. Now, this is very different looking on the 12-hour as we are starting to see we've seen pretty much the deepest compression we've seen in this current range near the prior all-time highs and the current all-time high. This is the most compressed we've seen the 12-hour. So in this case, to maintain more aggressive upside expansion, you need to see closures above the upper second in the next 12-hour candle. That's 70,240. And to maintain its current expansive posture, you need to see it remaining above the current upper first. And that is actually all the way down there at 69,350. I would say 69.5 to $70,000 is roughly where you want to see it, which is, you know, basically in between the upper first and upper second. As long as you're seeing closes maintain above the upper first, then expansion will continue. And as long as it's in the strong half of the Bollinger Bands here, which is all the way down there at 68,500, you don't want to see that area drop. From the higher term time frame look that I just presented, you wouldn't want to see price come back down there and start closing anywhere around there. From the 12-hour expansion look, you want to see this get continuation. It did fail to close the last 12-hour candle above this wick high at 70,600. Need to see this 12-hour start to get above there and break that wick high and start going for around that $72,000 to $73,000 high. So this is 72,000. And then of course the next high to beat is 73 up here. So that is what I'm going to leave you with here, outside of the momentum pivot being at $68,000, which gives it quite a bit of room here on the 12-hour to play with. All right, I will catch up with you tomorrow in a longer format video. You have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe, and of course, as always, stay safe. With all of that said, Landy out.